we get some hellos in the chat so that we know you can hear and see us?
We'll be starting in just a second.
Ooh, that was quick. Karen Passmore says hi and waiting.
Yay! Yay! So let's get started then. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this beautiful Family Day weekend. Sorry to take you away from your family, but we have to sew at least once in the weekend, right? So I have all my stuff on my table that we're going to need today. I have my blocks cut. When I went from the cutting chart, I again remember to pull out my color sheet because I want to keep organized and make sure that I have the right fabrics that she called for. Again, before we start, don't forget to ask a question. If something's not clear, it certainly doesn't hurt my feelings. And I know there's somebody else out there asking exactly the same question. So Tiffany will be monitoring the computer as well. And we will try to answer any questions that come up.
We have a couple of comments. Hi, I can hear and see you. Hello from Frankfurt, Ontario. Hello from Ontario, Canada. Hi. Hello from Capriol. Valerie says hello. Oh, Kathy Hogue says hello.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So this week, this is the stuff that we're going to need. We're going to need a couple marking devices. I have white chalk for my dark fabric, and I have a mechanical pencil for my light fabric. This time is not a good time to use the friction markers because we will be pressing on top of our marks. And when you do that, they disappear. If you have, I have some cutter, whether it's a small one or big one, whichever you have. A magic wand might come in handy. We will be using the wing clipper ruler today. And if you don't have that, at least a square that's at least 4.5 inches square. We will also be using some of the Acorn seam align glue. This comes in really handy this time. So let's get started. You probably guessed already that we're going to be making flying geese, but we're not going to be making the regular flying geese because, you know, we have to make it different. So normally when we make flying geese, they become mirrored imaged units. If you're not familiar with the wing clipper method, what we're doing is taking one large square, 4 little squares, and making 4 at a time flying geese. So when we have 2 different color wings with the normal method, you will see that one will be blue and green, then the other one will be green and blue. So they're total mirror images. This time, what we want to do is we want to make sure that all our geese are non-mirrored image.
Put that on top of
this one? Yeah. Okay. So that means every single goose that we have, the dark of the color 2 is on the one side and the F will be on the other. So we don't want the mirror. So there's a few different ways to do this. My favorite method of making flying geese is by using this method and with Deb's ruler. You used to have to nudge in, and a couple years ago she came up with a no nudge method where we're cutting our blocks a little bit bigger than what the ruler had specified, and we're lining our edges of our small squares up with the big square right on the line. So if you haven't yet, go to her website and she has a free downloadable cutting instructions for the no nudge. You don't need it for this particular ruler because I've given you all the measurements that we need. But if you're going to be doing this in the future and if you're going to be doing any kind of flying geese, I like her no nudge. I can line up the squares right on the corners. I don't have to fudge them in or move them in a little bit. And I find there's a little bit more trim up space. I like the method. I like the technique. So let's...
Oh my goodness, we have a hello from Southern Indiana.
Hi!
I bet they don't have nearly as much snow as us.
I bet they don't. Okay, so on our big square, the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to use my mechanical pencil because this is a light fabric. And I am going to just draw one line from corner to corner. And I might as well do it on this side as well. Remember, just another little tip, when you are using any kind of writing device or drawing a line, make sure you draw as close to the ruler as you can. If you hold your pen up, you can see that it's quite a ways different from the where you want to be.
And just to clarify, your fabric is right side up right now.
Absolutely. Right side up. I am making these lines really dark so you can see them. They don't have to be that dark, but just so you can see them better on camera. So now on my 4 little squares, what I want to do is draw a line. I'm going to draw 2 lines. So my sewing lines, and I want to draw them on the back. So I'm going to take that laser line on my magic wand. I'm going to line it up with the corner, and I am going to draw my 2 lines. And these will be my sewing lines. You may not need to do this, but it just makes life a little bit easier to draw both lines. So there's the one. And
this is on the wrong side of the fabric?
On the wrong side of the fabric. So the big square, our A fabric, it's on the right side. And the little squares, they're all on the wrong side. Not that I can tell with this batik which one's the right and wrong. Okay. So I've got my lines drawn. So now what I want to do, I'm just going to put away my magic wand because I do not want to use that for cutting. It puts our fingers way too close to the edge of the ruler. So now I'm just going to cut it on the diagonal in between the 2 lines that we drew. This time we are doing, this is my C and my E fabric. So I'm just doing the one colorway right now.
I'm sorry, I just want to.
So this is our colorway number 1. Doesn't really matter which one we started with because we have to make them all. So now I'm going to use, go ahead.
Yeah, but we have to keep straight.
Absolutely.
Which colors are which.
Our C and our E has to be together. So I'm going to take the one set of C and the one set of E, and I am going to use those first and put the others to the side. So on my square, here's what becomes really important. I have to take my E fabric, and I'm going to look back at my design, make sure I really have the E fabric right, and I want to place that on the left of my line. My C fabric will go to the right of my line. We want to make sure that these have the proper color in the proper corner once they're all finished. Now I can just leave them there like that and pin them or stuff, but here's where I love that glue. It is the Seam Align Glue by Acorn, and I can just put a couple little dots here on the side, lining my edge up, and I will put a couple more here. On this side. Now the joys of this glue is it's very liquidy, but it doesn't leave any build up. I'm just going to hit it with my iron, and that is going to just get it to stick. I'm having issues with my iron today. So you can see just that little bit of heat, and now it's stuck. And now I'm going to do the opposite on this side. I can turn it around. So again, my E fabric will be on the left, and my C fabric will be on the right. Lining up my edges. Remember, these are oversized, so if they don't line up quite perfectly, I'm not going to stress over it because we have that fudge room. One thing when you're using the glue, sometimes we forget to close it. If it dries in there, just take one of those flower head pins and stick it in there and it'll open right back up. You haven't lost your whole glue. I've done it many, many, many times. So I'm just going to hit that with the iron. And now I am ready to go to my sewing machine. Again, so I have my sewing machine set at a 2.0 stitch length. I have my 1/4 inch foot on here right now. I don't necessarily need my 1/4 inch foot because I will be sewing on the line that we drew. So I could also use a regular foot and follow along with the line. Whichever one works better for you. I'm just grabbing my thread here. And off we go. I always love to start with my needle in the down position. So now I can adjudge. I can butt that seam right up to the edge of my needle, and off I go. One thing I forgot to mention, they do overlap in the center quite a bit. If they don't overlap, then we've got something cut wrong.
A comment. We have hi from Tennessee. She says, "You're above my skill level, but I'm learning so much. Thanks bunches."
Thank you. You know what? Give it a whirl. Because these blocks are all oversized, it really makes it, it takes all that stress away from you. So we only have to sew perfectly when we're sewing all our units together. So it will give us some practice to get all of these pieces, all of these units done before we need to sew with that perfect 1/4 inch seam.
And also following along step by step on these videos, you'll find you can bring the video to your sewing room and rewind as many times as you need.
Yeah.
And it's not so hard to follow along.
Okay. So I've got my 2 lines sewn. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in between the blocks on that diagonal. And now we have to press. This time we are going to press our seams towards our little triangles. The one thing about that glue, if we got overzealous with the glue, and if it's stuck somewhere, just tug it up or finger press it right up to the line, to your sewing line. Make sure that it opens up all the way. I've got a little bit excess glue here. I can see it doesn't want to, it didn't want to fold right. So I just give it a little tug and that glue disappears. It's totally gone. If we had to re-glue again, you would have to put more glue. You can't just repress it and have it to glue. So it's the best thing. So when we press, we're going to press our seams to our little corners. And this looks like a heart. If it looks like a heart, we will be right. We're on the right track. And you notice that I just finger press them up. This is a bias edge and I can really stretch this. So I want to make sure that it stays as straight as possible. I want to press my seam so it's right up to the seam allowance, but I don't want to stretch it that I can see those seams. So there we go. So we have our 2 little hearts. So we're going to take one of them. Now this time we want to make sure that, which is the best way to show that, this way maybe. I want to make sure that it looks like a flying goose with the 2 different fabrics on the goose. So again, it lines up exactly the same way. If we put our point up, our E fabric will be on the left and our C fabric will be on the right. Again, I am going to glue this. I love this glue. I know it's available in the States, but it is a Canadian product, which is really kind of cool.
You can also pin if you don't have
the glue, absolutely. If you did have just like a regular glue stick and you wanted to try that, just try to keep it in the seam allowance. We don't want it to stick too much.
A regular glue stick can leave residue, unlike this this glue.
Seam-align glue.
Yeah.
I call it pins in a bottle. I know I shouldn't, but it is just our magic pins in a bottle. And let's glue this one while we're going. We'll have them both ready. And you can put as little or as many dots as you like. Again, my E fabric will be on the left and my C fabric will be on the right. And once I'm finished all this and we compare it to our picture, let's hope that I'm correct.
You are.
Okay, thank you. You've been watching back there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to the sewing machine. Now, I could also have, again, my little leader here, which I love sewing with. Just a scrap piece of fabric to start me off. Holds my threads and I don't have to worry about that rat's nest happening in the bottom. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on those drawn lines. So there's one. I could flip this around and sew it like I did previously, or I could just grab my second one and I could chain piece this. So when you're making a whole lot, I love to keep it in this production line, just keep going one after the other. I love making all my units at one time because at that step, that's where my brain is, so I don't have to keep flipping from one unit to another. I'm just going to do the same thing over and over again. So now I just grab my first unit. This one's holding it in my machine, and I'm going to sew the other side. I could also sew on this side because we're sewing on the line. We could line it up here. We're so used to sewing with a 1/4 inch. We put it this way, but it really doesn't matter at this point because we have those lines to sew on. I think that was one of the first things that we did when we were little is had lined paper, and we sewed on the lines of the paper just to try and get that straight seam. So nothing more than what we did before. There we go.
I don't think I ever sewed on paper.
You never sewed on paper?
I don't think so. You drew lines on fabric for me.
Oh, I could have done that maybe, yeah. I thought I was failing as a mother. I remember.
No, I know I sewed on lines, just I don't think it was paper.
I remember as a little kid using up all my mom's thread and just sewed stitch after stitch after stitch in her sewing machine. You can tell right now that this seems a little off. I'm not going to worry about it because that's probably just my cutting that I missed. And we have that fudge room. It'll work, I promise. Again, so let's just press these. Again, we're going to press towards the little triangle, making sure that it opens up all the way to the seam. And then we are going to trim. This one's a little, looks crooked. So there we have it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 with all fabric E on the one side and fabric C on the other side, left and right. So now,
and you'll make, for the lap size, you'll make 6 units like this for a total of 24. For the double size, you'll make 10 sets for a total of 40. And for the, help me divide 72 by 4.
what?
How many sets to get 72?
Oh, 36, 15, 18.
Thank you.
18.
18 sets to make 72 units for the queen size.
Yep. Alrighty. So again, like I said, we did cut 12 of these A's, but we're only using 6 for this color, and we're going to use 6 for the F and H colorway. So let's square these up. So of course, I love the wing clipper ruler. I'm just going to grab a piece of paper, and you can see that we have all these wonderful lines. This time we are going to trim to a 2.5 by 4.5. So I'm going to find those lines on my ruler, and right on top of this 2.5-inch line, there's this X. So these diagonal lines will go on our seam with that X right on the nose of our goose. So I'm going to start with the point towards me, pointing towards my belly. I am going to find that X just over the 2.5, and I am going to place it on my seams. So if everything is perfect, my seam lines will line up right on the seams. And I have this little X here right in the intersection, so I will not lose my 1/4 inch. I have lots of fabric all the way around that I'm going to trim up. I don't think that's wasteful. I love to have that extra fabric. I have to stand up because I cannot cut sitting down. I get it crooked.
Especially for non-mirror image geese, there's a lot more room for things to get twisted, so I really like that trim up space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know I can sew a perfect 1/4 inch seam, but it's so enjoyable to sit and sew and not have to stress too much that you're absolutely perfect, but I can trim them up and I can be perfect at the end of the day. Okay, so I cut those first 2 sides. You notice that I put my hand over here because there's a seam there. There's going to be a little bit more bulk, so I don't want my ruler to shift. These wing clipper rulers, they're a very shiny surface on the back. So what I have found that I love using is this grippy non-slip coating. And I give it a spray on the back. You can see it's just a little foggy on there, but it gives just a tiny bit of roughness that it's not going to slide on my fabric, which I really like. So
you can also use, what is it called, the Invisigrip?
The Invisigrip as well. I know Deb Tucker has recommended that as well. It's a plastic coating that you stick to the back of the ruler. So that's also another option. Okay, so we cut the right and the top. So I'm going to take this perfect corner here that's in the upper right and rotate it down to the lower left. Now I'm going to take that 2.5 and that 4.5 inch line, and I'm going to line them right on the edge of my goose, of my unit. And lo and behold, I have that X at the top, that it's right on the point of my goose, so I'm not going to lose any points in the seam allowance. We try so hard to get those perfect points, I don't want to lose them at the end of the day. So there we have it. We have an absolutely perfect flying goose. Okay, so let's just do it again once more with the wing clipper ruler first. Again, my 2.5 line, I'm going to find that X that's right on top of it. I am lining up my seam, my diagonals on my seam. I have fabric all the way around. Holding that upper right corner, rotating it back. Again, remember to rotate it back because I don't want to cut the end of my ruler off. Oh, one thing to mention, people use lefties out there. Deb has wonderful directions in her instructions for left-handed people. I was going to try to show you, but you know what? I would just mess it up. It's just not my dominant hand. So check out her instructions. That is the one great thing that Deb has, is all those lefty instructions in there as well.
The left-handed instructions are also free on her free downloads page. She has the cutting diagrams for the left-handed people in there.
Okay. Again, I'm putting this 2.5 by 4.5 inch line on the edge of my fabric. That X is right on the point. I'm supporting that corner, cutting. cutting. Just going to go back. I felt it because there's a seam there, it just sort of jumped. And there we have it. Okay. I had not told you, so I don't think. This is Deb Tucker's technique that's called bird of a feather.
No, geese of a feather.
Geese of a feather. So if you are liking these units and you love designing your own blocks, it's one of those technique sheets that might be a really good thing to get. All right, so you don't have the wing clipper ruler. We still can use an actual square, except we have to do some math. This time the math's not all that difficult because I have to find half of our 4.5 inch width, which it's an easy math, it's 2 1/4. So I have to find the 2 1/4 inch line on our square. These are the creative grid rulers, and I always call them these little chicken feet. On our diagonal, you can see where the 2 1/4 inch line is. There's this little L, this little chicken foot right there. That's the point that we're going to need. So I am going to take that 2 1/4 inch and put it right on the point. Am I correct here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alrighty. So I've got my diagonal on the seam. I don't have another diagonal here, so I'm hoping that it's all going to be straight. I put my 2 1/4 inch right there on that point. So I'm going to be eventually trimming up to 2.5 by 4.5. So there's my 4.5. I've got lots of fabric. There is my 2.5. I've got lots of fabric. So I'm cutting. Again, the upper right goes down to the lower left. Now I'm going to take my 4.5 inch line and my 2.5 by 4.5. I'm going to place that on the edge of my block. Now this ruler has this really nice dotted line at my 1/4 inch seam, so I can see that that 1/4 inch dotted line is right at the point. So I'm not going to lose my point. So I can trim and I can trim. And there we have it. Exactly the same. Just a little bit more stressful because we have to find those little points. So I like the wing clipper, so I'm going back to that one. Again, so my last block, my 2 1/2 by my 4.5, my 2.5, my X on the top. Oh good, I stretched one. Okay, so I am lining this diagonal up here perfect. I was hoping I would do at least one. It doesn't line up here. That doesn't necessarily mean that I sewed crooked. That could mean that I pressed it crooked. Maybe I was a little overzealous. Maybe my iron caught on the seam and it just stretched it open because it's a diagonal. I can fix that. I'm going to go back to my iron. I am going to press it closed, and I'm going to open this up gently and give this a little steam, and I'm just smooshing it with my fingers just a little bit, trying to get that bias edge, this bias edge, back to where it's supposed to be. I'm just going to test it. And maybe I have to, sometimes I have to do it 2 or 3 times. This time, I'm pretty much right on. So easy, a little bit of steam. If it's really badly off, you can also use a little bit of spray starch. Worst case scenario, if it was really bad, you can fold it this way and take a little bit more seam up here. Go from nothing up to a little bit here, and it would probably fix your block for you. Alrighty, so 2 1/2, there's my X, lining them up on the seams. I've got fabric all the way around, cutting up, again rolling down, upper right down to the bottom left, my 2 1/2 by my 4.5 inch line, my little X on my beak, cut, cut. There we go. There we have it. So we have our 4 of our C and E.
And can we start making the next block so they know how to, where the pieces line up?
Which one goes? Absolutely. So I'm going to take...
As we're starting to make this second unit, is there anything that anyone needs us to go over again? Because otherwise we might cut this unit a little short and not redo everything. However, if there's any questions, we can absolutely finish making this unit so that you can... to answer any of your questions.
Absolutely. So finding my magic wand. Again, our A, we're drawing on the right side of our fabric. And I'm going to draw both our diagonals, one from diagonal to diagonal, from corner to corner. And then my second diagonal from corner to corner. So that's on the front of my fabric. On my little squares, I am going to draw 2 lines, and I am going to draw it on the back of my fabric. Again, my laser goes from corner to corner.
Your laser?
My laser light, my laser cut line.
Oh, okay.
Okay? All right. I wish I had a laser. Whoops.
For that laser, you need the creative icon too.
Oh, I know. I'll talk about that someday. It has some amazing features. Alrighty. I'm gonna have to spray Grippy on this too because it keeps sliding on me. Again, I'm drawing on the back of my fabric. I keep looking at the back and the front, trying to decide which one I like better. It's hard to tell, which is a good thing. Don't stress over it if you can't tell. If you can't tell which is the front and the back, nobody else can as well. So whether you have some in your quilt one way and some the other way, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever.
With batiks.
With batiks, that's right. That's right. Okay, so we're going to cut, again, our little squares into triangles. So I'm going to cut it just from corner to corner in between those 2 drawn lines that we have. So there's our one set. And there's our second set. So when Tiffany reposts the instructions with the diagram on them, we will make sure that we put a 1 and a 2. So the number 1 fabric will go on the left or on the top. If we have it this way, there's a top and there's a bottom. So in this case, F is our number 1 fabric, and it will go on the top.
Okay, so I need to make another diagram, I think, before I post it.
And number 2, we just need a 1 and a 2. That's all. Like that. Okay. So our fabric, and this one's different. Remember this one, our darker fabric was on the top. So our first unit, the darker fabric was unit fabric number 1. This one, the lighter of the 2 fabrics, is fabric number 1. So I am going to just glue this here. Any questions whatsoever?
No one's posted any questions.
Oh, they're all experts out there. Okay, I'm going to just hit that with my iron so it sticks. And you can see now why I had to use a mechanical pencil, because all those other diagonals would be gone
if it
was the friction marker, which is usually what I use when I'm drawing things like this. Again, lining it up on the edge like we always do.
And that's fabric F. And now
This is fabric F.
And now fabric H.
And now fabric H. So fabric F is the fabric number 1. Fabric H is fabric number 2. Do you want me to sew it?
They haven't asked for it.
Okay.
What kind of glue? Can you show them a little closer?
Absolutely. Can you zoom in on that?
Stand still.
It's well loved, so the label is a little cracked, but it's called Seam Align Glue, and it's an Acorn Precision Piecing product.
It's also refillable. They have a bigger bottle that you can refill the small bottle with.
Yeah.
So that's why it's well loved.
Yeah, the label gets really, really cracked and used up because, again, like she says, we buy I think it's a 4-ounce bottle that we just refill this one. So the top is really nice. You can get those teeny tiny little drops that all you need. Goes a long way. I might as well sew it.
Okay.
I might as well sew this one, and then I'll put
time. Oh, I'm stuck.
I like sewing this with the 1/4 inch foot because if I'm off a little bit, you can see here I didn't quite line up. I'm not really going to worry about it. I'm just going to use the edge of my foot, making sure that I have that 1/4 inch on the triangle, and it's going to be great. So I'm going to cut this one apart, and we'll just place our other triangles. Again, go to my iron. I am going to set my seam. Now I'm going to finger press them open. Make sure I didn't get over generous with that glue. So my seam opens up right to my stitch line. Oh, I felt a little tug there. Again, so the next color, what we are going to do, this one has the brown, so it has to be the lighter color. You do want them to be the opposite. So again, our F is on the top and our H is on the bottom. Continue on like that, and you will make 24 or 40 or 72 of each unit. And next week we will have something different for you. So again, if you like this videos, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the new website. Do you have the cutting instructions on the websites yet?
Week 1 is up there. Week 2 is not yet up there.
So week 1 is up on our website. Just in case you're not on Facebook, then you can get it there. If not, join our Facebook group. Post your colors that you're doing. Love to see all the stuff that you are creating as we go along.
And the week 2 sheet with diagrams will be available on our Facebook group and on our website as soon as I add the other diagram. Later today.
Yeah. Awesome. So we will let you go, ladies, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and have a happy family day. Happy sewing, everybody.